Not true. I'm more tired because we people at home understand it took hour, an hour to create a thumbnail and make something compelling to draw you here into this moment with us, so share on this Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I was
Message
not aware
about
of that news,
gold.
Charleston Zimmerman. Appreciate the heads
Hey,
up, but
Charlton Zimmer.
this
What I was saying is, Charlton, that to me, I don't really care about sports ball, but get the scanner radio app for Android, and it automatically alerts you. Like if you say, "Hey, if over 5,000 people, or if it's over a certain percentage than what are normally listening to a local scanner, like let me know on my phone, and then you know right away when the thing, when the police and the fire and stuff are called, and it lets you listen to the audio stream, and you can hear it for yourself instead of through some third party. And
oh, that's pretty
unfortunately,
interesting.
die every day, but you know, I feel
So
like I'm
so
dying
we
every
were
day.
trying to try different platforms. Are we going to use YouTube? Are we going to do
Yeah, we
StreamYard?
tried. Yeah.
We tried Google Meet. Um, Ultimately, we
Look,
wound up
Tools
with
just went live. Tools is so ass. Look at this. Look at this guy. He's trying to steal your streams, man.
nice.
Sorry.
I probably should have told him because tonight is not usually my night that I go live. I
Don't
was
worry
not.
about it. We got to get this on paper, and we'll get some questions, and then maybe we can come back and do another
They
stream.
they
Yes,
can
it's a
watch it later. I'm
surprise
not worried
stream.
about it. Yeah, we just got
Yeah.
to talk about it. We've been trying to do this for 2 or 3 weeks now. So
You get tired of that old fart over there,
yeah,
souls.
we were trying to test, and I thought I was testing, but kind of going live.
No,
So what's
now we
going
know
on,
we
man?
went
You
live.
sent
We
me
tested this for
some
an hour.
iodine because
Yeah,
I
I
was
did.
getting pretty sick. So
Dragon. You were a dragon.
yeah, it was well,
Dragon.
nobody told me how skinny I was either. So if
Well,
I
you
was to
two look
bring up
more
pictures of
robust.
me previously, I was getting pretty bad. I didn't know. Yeah, yeah, I've been trying to just whatever, man, eat it, drink it, whatever I can to get my weight back. It's been pretty crazy.
And you couldn't maintain it. It was just going through you probably.
Well, I was reading you the symptoms of the
Oh, right.
mycotoxin poisoning. So
Mm-hmm.
when you get multiple molds next to each other, they put off the mycotoxins to battle each other. And I was never worried about mold. Were you ever scared of mold? Like, growing
No,
up,
before
whatever.
the military, I thought mold was like whatever. Yeah, it's mold. Like, yeah, you got something growing.
Right, right. Well, you just spray with bleach and move on, right? So
Right. Yeah,
then
it's
you
just a
start
thing.
doing your research. Hey, I've got mold. Well, first you got to figure out that you have the mold problem, to
Yeah.
really know what's going on. As I said before, we had shingles in the attic and a roof over that. So I'm just literally just
Yeah, you had
dying.
another. You had a roof, and then you had like a new roof over it, and so you had to sort of
Right.
like lots of organic material for the water to stay in and build up a growth layer.
Pretty much, yeah. And then, no sense of smell from previous illness. So
Yeah.
you got no idea anything's going on. All I know is that my gallbladder is failing.
Yeah.
So, all of a sudden, before my gallbladder started failing, I noticed that I was starting to get really tired.
Hmm.
And after I was finishing inspections for the day, it got to where, man, I just couldn't stay awake.
Could I ask you a favor? I
Yeah.
want to pay attention to you and what's going on, and it's hard for me when that screen in the background is playing that logo. Can you just hit the power on that monitor? I know it's
No, no, you're good.
disruption. Or
No,
just
you're
move the
good.
camera a little bit, or now there's glare off of it, which is like just can you just turn the camera just a little. Oh,
There you go.
perfect,
There you
perfect,
go. I
everything's
did it.
perfect. Okay, I can go to heaven now. I can die and go to heaven. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's why I looked away because I was trying to listen to your words, and the visual distractions like wasn't coherent.
No, I got you.
But anyway, you had multiple layers in your attic.
Yeah. And then, before my gallbladder really started failing,
And then you lost your gallbladder.
I noticed that I was getting more tired, couldn't stay awake, and I was getting really bloated too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was showing you the visual of my tox screen of those
Mm-hmm. Right.
toxins, and I was
Yeah, the
showing you all
numbers
the
from
symptoms and
before.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah, 7 times over the limit on pretty much anything you can. I was like the Baskin Robbins of toxin poisoning. I had all the freaking
But
flavors.
it's not as fun as ice cream.
No, man, and, a lot of those toxins, kind of sorta guaranteed to cause, the big C.
Yeah. Oh, cancer.
So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, it's, somewhat inevitable, but hopeful, but realistically, I don't know.
Well, the little I know about it is, two friends have recovered from it completely, and one of their remedies that they had that was non-standard was benbendazole, which is an out-of-patent anti um, parasite medication that, like ivermectin, has other uses besides an anti-parasite, and it's very safe, extremely safe. So, and
Okay,
it should be much more inexpensive than it is, but it's still pretty cheap, and you can get it at Tractor Supply or one of these farming feed stores in a liquid
I got
oral
you.
form and 10%. I don't know what the dosage is, but my guess is you can't go wrong if you do a canine dosage, which is like 10 times that of the equine dosage. It seems like a lot, but the thing is, it's so freaking safe that it's even
Yeah,
ivermectin and collies is like really dangerous and blah blah blah. So the thing is, we had some really good medications early on, but as they fell out of
I appreciate
patent,
it, Dougie.
what's that?
Sorry, answering chat, gotta keep up with it too. What's up, Jeremy?
Yeah, okay. So as the I'm getting tired, as I already explained, because we spent an hour doing this and it's close to bedtime. So I
Right.
go to sleep when the sun goes to sleep. So,
Well, not just
but
that, but you also had the same poisoning I had too.
yeah, we'll get into that. But so, and it's still happening today to all your young recruits when you send your sons and daughters off to the military. We'll talk about that's a routine part of their intake, I guess you could call it, at
Yeah,
in the military, and it's causing them to have brain injury, environmental asthma that leads to low body oxygen and ultimately brain damage while they're in places that they can't control their environment and don't even know that they're suffering from it. We'll
right.
get into that. We'll get into that. But what's I talking about? Oh, so early on, I'm against patent synthetic patent pharma. I'm not against necessarily synthetic pharma because early synthetic pharma was closely copying some natural principles or maxims of nature. Those medications fell out of patent, and pharma companies came up with worse copies that were more toxic that they could charge more because they were in patent and they were a different molecule. And so you really need to like research older things that still worked. And they're not used because they don't work anymore. Although in the literature, it'll kind of like brainwash you, the doctors and veterinarians get that, oh, this is old, we don't use this anymore. But there's nothing wrong with it. They still manufacture it overseas, for instance, and use it
Right.
quite a lot because it's well known how to manufacture it. It's out of patent, so they can just like by the gazillions produce this stuff, and it's just dirt cheap. So,
Yeah. So let me let some people. We got about 165 people watching right now. Appreciate you guys
holy
dropping
cow!
in.
Welcome to every 165 person.
Yeah. So this is it's a tool channel, obviously. I'm an electrical inspector and I share that kind of knowledge. But I ended up getting really, really sick. And this gentleman here sent me some iodine to help with the toxicity of the mold. And we've made a pretty good turnaround so far. And he's just full of knowledge on and he's experienced everything firsthand what I was kind of experiencing. So just a huge blessing to have him here and have his knowledge and appreciate you.
Thank you, thank you. Um, and I'm excited to get a chance to get on a channel that's not so big that they won't talk to me, and it's not so small that we won't get good coverage, and with somebody that has an analytical mind, electrical inspector, and also suffered from the same condition that I had, and also overcame it in a positive way without like too much invasive nonsense. And you understand the surgery we went through, but um, Yeah. So when you told me, like,
Oh,
I
for sure.
I know stuff, but I forget stuff. Yeah, I know Trailer knew. Well, I mean, what's think of
Yeah.
nudes for noobs. I can send you those in a DM later if you want. But the see, I lose my train of thought, especially when I get tired. So I'll forget a lot of stuff. I'll get a remedy for something going, and it'll work really well, and then I'll just forget all about it. And then he'll say, in this case, he said chlorine destroys the mycotoxins. Well, I don't want you to drink bleach to get it out of your system. Um, and but if you look in the atomic table of halides, it's chlorine, bromine, iodine, and fluorine. They're all halides. They all have that same charge that connects to a receptor in our bodies meant for iodine. And this goes pretty deep, but I'm going to just strictly keep it to mold. That the iodine, like chlorine, will destroy the mycotoxins, and you can take it internally, and it is a totally necessary supplement that most people are completely deficient of, and it creates low intelligence, and that's over generations. It creates progressively less intelligent offspring. It has to do with neurotubule growth in the womb, with the mom producing all the thyroid hormone needed by her thyroids and ovaries, both produce thyroid hormone in a woman for the first trimester. And that affects, of course, the intelligence, the development of the fetus. And yeah, it affects our third eye, like how well we can perceive what's going on around us. And that's that kind of the
Interesting.
NPC phenomena. What were you going to say?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So I don't
Um,
want to. I can talk for forever. Just let me know.
yeah, the stuff, I don't know if it's actually chlorine or what it is. I know that the hypo something fluoride, if you look up how to destroy certain mycotoxins,
Some kind of fluoride compound will
ozone,
do it.
time, it's time. Uh,
Yeah.
ozone will kill a lot of mycotoxins. Um,
Hmm.
there's really like, 6 or 7 that they test you for that's like the most known, but there's millions out there, right? There's unknown numbers or whatever it is of the mold spores. Um, bleach is what the hypochlorite is. So bleach can kill uh mycotoxins. Now, what I had
Okay.
specifically in my, urine and blood is
Hmm.
the trichophazine.
Hmm.
And that's, man, that has just followed me everywhere I've gone. I mean, we
It
went
stayed in
from
your
the
circuit.
house, we had to sell the cars, throw away all the
Right.
clothes. It's in the
Right.
tools.
I've heard that. So,
So
to the 63 people that are still with us, I really appreciate. This is important to me because we will get to my story more, and I think it's really important again to people that are in the service or have been in the service and stuff. I know 150 people were on here initially. They might have just been checking it out. They saw the Taylor Swift thing
yeah,
and
people come and
got
go
caught.
throughout. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not a live streamer. In other words, I don't have enough subscribers to my channel, I think, to live stream, and I'm really fortunate to be here. So, yeah. So anyway, yeah, the hypochlorite or whatever being a kind of concentrated compound of halide, I thought, well, let's just do iodine. I arrived at iodine because it's like the whole system is voluntary. Even taxes are voluntary. You can volunteer out of them. I remember I was in the military
Right.
processing through MEPS, and there was a woman. There was many females in Columbia, South Carolina. You kind of imagine, and they all really knew their job. And the one woman was sizing you up for, well, it was a woman and man or something. They were sizing you up for boots. The boots fit perfect. I mean, perfect. Most comfortable
Okay.
pair of them. They were just standard issue military boots. But man, they felt so comfortable. I was like, wow, I really got a good pair of boots. They really knew that job. So there was one woman that had, line of people, and we were signing papers, and I get up to it's a W 2. It's just a standard employment W 2 because it's a job like any other job. You're working for a business, U.S. Army Inc., and you need to sign a W 2. And I already had an annotated copy of the entire IRS tax code with all the tabs in it that they wanted to draw your attention to because there's two different ways to do taxes. There's actually reading the code, and then there's a book called GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, and that's what a lot of tax attorneys and accountants use to stay safe and keep you out of audits or whatever. It's this sort of
Right.
herd mentality. But if you look through the code, it's like one of the things is only you can decide whether you're exempt or not. They give you two examples of where they think that you're probably safe in that little fold out that you get when you fill it out. It's just like 2 pages. But there's many more reasons, and only you can decide. And I signed exempt. She said, "Aren't you patriotic? Don't you want to pay your taxes?" And I was like, "Look, lady, I already signed up my health and my life to this organization. Like they don't need my taxes. Let some other
Right.
person that doesn't want to fight pay taxes. And I just went on my merry way. And they have no right to change that. No employer, nothing. They can. That's only you can prevent forest fires.
Yeah.
Only you can fill out exempt on there. And I've been exempt ever since. And of course, I haven't worked all that much after having been in the military and being put on disability. Um, but every time something, and the IRS has never bothered me. In fact, they were one of the easiest organizations to work with because in like 2001 or something, I had one year where I didn't fill a tax form out. Just one year was like missing. And I
Right.
was still learning all that tax stuff, right? And I just didn't fill it out. And they assigned an estimated tax for that year. And then way later on, as I'm on Social Security disability, money starts disappearing. And I contact the Social Security. They send me to the Treasury. The Treasury says the IRS is taking money out. I try the normal means. I'm like, I'm on Social Security. I can barely function, and I couldn't communicate at all like I am today. And we can get to the therapies that I received that got my neurological recovery way higher. I was totally incommunicado. I was an emotional mess, and but I was trying to go through the steps, and I was getting frustrated with the normal stuff that weren't getting me anywhere. I'm like, I'm poor. I'm on Social Security as my sole means of income. I have no hope of working or anything like that. And eventually, I was like, something in me just said, doing some searching or something, and I don't know how it was, but I thought ombudsman. Maybe I knew the name ombudsman, and I said, let's see if there's an IRS ombudsman, and there was. And it was actually
Yeah.
something that Congress put in, like in 2009. They insisted that the IRS get this office for people like me in my situation that
In
just
your
couldn't figure
situation,
out.
yeah.
And I called them up, and basically, after back and forth and some exchange of information, so they knew where I was at, they were like, "Don't worry about it. Like, unless you make more at the time, this was years ago. Like, unless you make more than 25,000 a year, like, just don't even worry about it." And they just froze that. They just got rid of it or froze it or whatever, went away, and it's never come back. Every other agency has been harder to deal with than the IRS. The IRS
Yeah.
was the
Uh,
easiest.
Charles Zimmerman says, I paid federal income tax in the Navy and working as a federal employee as an
Yeah,
electrician. Well,
this
thank you
this
for your service.
thank you for your service. Yeah, but you can. I haven't. I'm kind of a fan of Curtis Stone, the off-grid with Curtis Stone. He's up in Canada, but he's asserted the same things that I have, and then he has people in the states that do this. And he was talking about rescission, something about rescission with the IRS. It's a thing that you can go through. Like not everything that you can go through with them, they're going to publish to you. And certainly, if you get the code that's bigger than the Bible, you're going to look at it and go, "I got to read this." But fortunately, Schiff's team at the time had an annotated copy. You could just get
It's a
right to
good
the
point.
meat of the matter
Yeah.
and learn about it. I just started filling out exempt. I didn't do any rescission. I just said new job. And the thing about a W 2 is if you don't fill out exempt, you're good from the time you filled it out. So if you put an exemption of one, it's good until you quit that job. If you fill out exempt, you've got to do it every year. And you can always file a new W 2 at any time. That's what I did. I
No, I
quit the
see.
job. I signed exempt. They never gave me a problem with that. I signed exempt in the military and at a couple of jobs subsequent just to as I was on my road to recovery and more functional. Um, so, I mean, you can do it. It's you have to really understand the government makes money out of nothing. They just make money out of nothing. They
Yeah.
cause it to come into being. What do they need your money for? They
So,
don't.
so you sent me something about the
Anyway,
barracks
that's
that you
kind of
were
off
at.
topic.
No, no, you're good. So after you signed all that up, you got in the military and in basic training is where this place is?
Now we're getting to the good stuff.
Yeah.
Thumbnail. Um, so, in absolutely good faith, pre-training before I went in, running every morning with my recruiter. I mean, I was like 110% into this, like more than I can even explain. My whole heart and
Right.
soul. So I went to Maps, good mood, good disposition, little different, little mindset because I was a little bit older than these teenagers, and we get to basic, and probably the first thing I notice is that we clean the barracks in basic, mop and sweep every morning, and the room was locked, and we'd come back in the evening, and it was full of dust everywhere, and
Dust. Yeah.
I was
I was
like,
gonna
what is
say.
going on? Where's this dust coming from?
Right.
Yeah.
I,
So,
I can show you. Actually, I don't know if it's here, right? But I started cleaning some things that came out of the safe. If you catch my drift, out of my safe
stuff
from
that
the
was
other
there.
house,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And on the rounds inside of the thing that has the
Oh, on the
spring and
freedom seeds, you mean?
yeah, yeah, on those, so I put it in a plastic bag and I put it in my safe, right?
Yeah.
And I put a lot of stuff in the safe. So the context is, we threw away everything that I've ever owned pretty much and kept the
Sure.
stuff that really mattered. And what's up, SEO?
ISTO can.
So
Anyway.
we kind of tried to keep everything that really mattered, and the stuff for the most part we threw about $20,000 of clothes out the front door. I tried to keep my tools onto the new house,
I
and
don't
they
spend that much on a
contaminated.
car. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so we,
Keep going.
it's actually not that hard to get. You're talking 3, 4K per person. You got a leather jacket that's
Salvation Army.
$150, and yeah.
Salvation Army.
So
Project.
anyway, I contaminated a brand new $1,000 safe in the process of trying to figure this out once I moved to the new house.
Yeah.
Did your mold or mycotoxins ever smell?
Somebody's
I got
phone is
someone
buzzing.
calling me.
And it is
Yeah,
not
yeah,
mine
I've got
because
it.
I have mine on Do Not Disturb because I am a professional YouTube
Yeah,
streamer that
yeah.
doesn't want to
Maybe he'll
waste
join the
36
live
people's
stream. I
time.
don't know. I don't know. He might try to call me again. Everyone's like, "Hey, are you okay?" It's like
Are you live
we put
streaming
a
right now?
clickbaity title. Why not? Why not?
Join the
So
live, like come into the chat. Don't call
yeah.
me on the phone. I might
All
be
right.
busy.
So anyway, uh,
Anyway.
yeah, we contaminate a whole state. Did your mycotoxins or anything ever smell like chemicals, like plastic? Did it get inside of rubber and just consume everything in your life, or did it not? Like,
Well, I can tell you what happened, and that's all interesting about the smells and stuff.
yeah,
Because what they might have done between rotations is use something like kills on the walls and tried to like eliminate the smells. But the problem was the HVAC system. So HVAC, I know HVAC people are like, call it HVAC. The HVAC, the air handler was different only for new recruits. So only for people that had no idea what their rights were or what their capabilities were, young teenagers, very vulnerable in a controlled situation where they intentionally like had no control. You're gonna do what the drill sergeant says. And that was like drilled home. And that's good. I mean, it's good for developing character and stuff. But I think the people that designed this system, honestly, and signed off on it, knew that this was going to happen, unfortunately. And I can get all conspiratorial, but it's cheaper to damage eager, healthy, patriotic people up front rather than trying to create some fake Gulf of Tonkin or 9/11 or some prerequisite for war and then sending them overseas, and it's very expensive. Easier to just enter them up front, and then they don't know who they are. They don't have frontal lobe control. It's reduced anyway. Their
oh
IQ is
man, yeah,
reduced.
you're onto something there. I got you. Okay,
Yeah. So if you put it in that context, it makes a lot of sense
that
because
that does
as
actually make a
because
little bit of sense because it's very mind altering. I mean, I was
yeah.
kind of
Go
out
ahead.
of it.
Yep. Honey, I
Yeah,
can't think today. My brain's on
yeah,
hold.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been there.
Well, I already had ADHD. Um,
Yeah, but this is on another level.
but
This
but
is
th-
like,
but this
let me bring you
progressed
down
really
to
bad.
high
Like I
vibration.
always kind of had ADHD,
Yeah.
but never really needed medication until
Right, it was
that
controllable
house.
until you got this. It pushed you over the edge, and then you're like, "Ah, I'm drowning. I'm
Oh,
drowning."
it's never been the same either.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to jump around too much, but the positive effect of the iodine I can see in the last 2 months is really taking you from somebody that was kind of dragging and gaunt, like you said, which I just didn't realize that part of it until you said something at the beginning of the stream.
Yeah.
You can't really gain put weight back on, but it took you from somebody who's really dragging and gaunt to somebody that was um, like there's just a brightness about your energy and your sharpness about your mind that just wasn't there 2 months ago. And I've seen this transformation over and over with hundreds of people I've helped with this stuff, just privately because they can't go to a doctor. He just says, "Oh, your thyroid's not working. Let's cut it out."
Yeah. There's no medical knowledge of how bad mold can
They're
be.
so stupid. 95% of doctors are useless. You can throw them in the abattoir. They should be plain and
I
simple just
I
like
got I got the runaround
chickens.
just from my gallbladder. I went to the doctor 4 times in the same week.
I'm sorry, I
You
gotta
know?
laugh about it because all this stuff
Yeah.
is so bizarre and ridiculous that if you don't have that
No, no,
attitude,
I got the
God,
runaround, for about 3 months before I had to find my own specialist. Not 3 months, 3
yeah.
weeks before I had to find my own specialist, and then I got the runaround for my specialist, and I had to find my own surgeon. And then while I was in the waiting room after surgery, I got a call from my specialist asking if I still needed a surgeon.
Yeah.
So,
You had to go find your own surgeon to
I had
take
to find
care of it.
everything. Yeah, you have to do
Yeah.
everything, and, that was while I still so we hadn't even opened up the ceiling yet, you know? It was still, like, in the ceiling, it was still killing me
Oh, you were
slowly, and the
still in your old
reason
house.
Yeah,
You were still in your old house
yeah,
when you were getting this done. Holy
yeah,
shit.
yeah, so I was recovering from surgery, um, but because I was in the room more often than I ever was, because I was recovering for 4 days, right?
Right, you were
So I
hanging
didn't
out and
leave the
yeah,
room
I
for
get it.
4 days in that terrible
It was affecting
mold.
you more.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
so one morning, man, I'm like, week after surgery, I'm, like, bouncing, dude. I mean, I was like I had to close my eyes and pretend I was on a roller coaster to not throw up, and I don't get
Wow.
dizzy like that. Like, I can go on roller coasters.
Yeah.
I don't get
Yeah,
dizzy, you know what I
exactly.
mean?
It's unrelatable. I got that all the time. Yeah, I get that. It's you just go from life as you knew it to a totally different life, and you're like, 30 or whatever, and you're like, what the is going on?
Yeah. No, I always had, like, a fluid in my ear, like, I would talk, and all of a sudden, I couldn't hear myself, or it would sound like you're underwater. You ever had that?
Well, the fluid in your ear will give you that dizziness. I mean, that's your, you know, and that's
Yeah, but
your
after all
orientation.
this getting out of the mold, man, did wonders, you know?
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Army basic training is, I don't know, 16 weeks or something. What the fuck it is? I don't remember. I don't care. People ask, what's your ETS about it? I don't give a shit. I don't remember any
Yeah,
of the
crazy
acronyms.
vertigo, George Ordway, exactly.
Yeah, vertigo. So, and we were outside during the day, and we were in there at night for 9 hours, like 8 or 9 hours. You take a shower, you go to bed, and
Right.
all the wolf blankets had tons of dust. They'd come out of some kind of storage and shake them, and dust everywhere. And of course, you had
I
dead skin coming
I
off of
could
you,
give
and you had
you I
dirt.
could give you PTSD right now just by showing you something with that dust on it, because 'cause
No,
I've still
that
got
doesn't bother
things
me
here
anymore. You could show
that
me
have that
dead people, and I
notorious
wouldn't care
it's so weird, right? Because the dust
completely.
is microscopic, but
I mean, in the
it's like
past, maybe.
but it's here, let me show you.
Somebody play the Jeopardy song for this guy.
Yeah, hang on, see if I can find one here.
Do, 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 do.
You can't
Zoom.
really see it on here, so I would have to get something else. I could get a hand tool or something like
Put your
that. But it's a
questions in the
very good.
chat. There's 20 of you here. Put your questions in the chat. In the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, think of
So,
things to ask or explain vertigo. You're saying.
oh, actually, I've got older batteries too, man. I could show you. Like it's like a
Oh,
$300
they're
battery, so I don't
infected.
want to throw it away. But if you look down here by the terminals, you can see
Yeah. Yeah, you can
that
see there's
yellow
shit in
dust.
there. Yeah.
Um,
Is that the mold
you
mycotoxin? The mold?
yeah, it's that dust that you're talking about. It just gets on everything. It's so wild. Um,
What about like electrical cleaner, like CRC electrical cleaner? That's non-conductive. Do
dude,
you
I haven't
think
found
that thing
anything to
upset?
kill it. I haven't found anything to kill it. Like even in like
Oh,
the
really?
little tiny pores,
Wow.
right? It's you can kill it, but it will still affect you. Like my chemical doctor, I actually found a chemical doctor around here. Um, and yeah, it's on my fingers now. So he was saying you could try to spray acetone on it. Like I got a doctor telling me to spray acetone on microscopic spores. Like
Yeah.
it's just wild. It's wild.
Well,
Did your throat ever
uh,
burn?
I don't remember. I remember blacking out in the third week of basic training because every morning when we woke up, we'd have environmental asthma induced from the mold spores being ejected by the HVAC that wasn't properly filtered. So I really want to get back to the HVAC for a second,
Yeah.
continue that part of the story. There were three HVAC systems in these barracks designs. So they had the old drafty World War II barracks, which were actually better in many ways because they were drafty. And they tore them down and replaced them with these almost airtight barracks in the late 80s, I think was the rough build date. Okay. By the early 90s, they started to have epidemic levels of respiratory infection in the first 3 weeks of basic training in all these different places, all over the place, different bases. Well, how do you suppose that happens? Unless it's the
Yeah.
same environmental cause. And it was the same style of building, and they'd have a two-stage HVAC. So there's two filters. One is the pleated polyester mesh. One is the totally worthless fiberglass mesh filter that's like my fingers. They'll just go right through it. Literally, you can see the sky through it.
Right.
And only for drill sergeants and for return enlistment, a category in the Army where they've been separated for more than 5 years, and so they have to requalify through basic. So they're in their own like two-man bunks, and but those rooms are filtered differently than new recruits. New recruits had no pleated polyester mesh filter; they just had one that you could see through. And as a result, it didn't protect the equipment, it didn't protect their health. It had caused all this dust that I talked about, all these sources to just accumulate in the
Hmm.
ductwork, as you can imagine. It wasn't
Yep.
Teflon coated tubes. It was like, rib stuff, and it would grow stuff in the ductwork over time, and basically colonies that then mold could grow in and release spores to. And it gets to a point where if you just search mold military barracks, you'll find like threads on Reddit and stuff. You'll see pictures of output registers and mold growing on everything, ceiling
And
tiles,
that's
and
where you were
because it's
at,
trying to find
right?
any organic material to attach to grow on.
What's actually interesting, I've talked to a lot of remediation people. I've talked to a lot of sanitationists, my chemical doctors. The mycotoxins, because they are microscopic, they need
Right?
to attach to something. And we actually, we contaminated this house 2 or 3 times very mildly before we really figured out what to do. And even in my car right now, because there's mycotoxins in everything. And once you get on the exposure level that both of you and I have been in, you're very susceptible and sensitive to those things. So like even my brand new car will hurt my throat from time to time if I don't pick up because, being an inspector, you kind of live in your car. So when you get handed a form or a paper or something, you scan it in, and then I usually put it on the floorboard because then you're just off for the next inspection, right? So I might have one McDonald's cup. I'll have like a couple of straw wrappers,
All with
3 or 4
organic
sheets of
material in it.
paper,
Sure.
and just stuff on the floor there from time to time. And just
No, you're
picking
right.
that stuff up out of my car makes it so my throat doesn't hurt in my own car.
Yeah. Now I can advise you to get any kind of old Honeywell air cleaner they don't make the filters for anymore. Kaz is the brand that carried the patents or whatever. KAZ, but you'll find them at the Salvation Army, little box styles and stuff with the various kind of filters. And people get rid of them because they can't find the filter anymore. But the
Yeah.
motor works fine. Everything else works fine. You throw away the filter. You get a UVC. I'm going to suggest a little PL13 fluorescent UVC. Sometimes they're dual. It's a light. It's a particular spectrum, and it comes with a plug. You plug it in. Of course, you can get an inverter for your car. And then the other thing you need to do is just take 3M90, that's spray glue, and
Okay.
open it up to the area that had the filters on it. You can just take it apart as the easiest way and mask off everything else. You don't want to spray the motor and you don't want to spray other parts of it. And get yourself a bag of titanium dioxide pigment. The big paint store should be able to hook you up with it. You can buy it online. It's inexpensive. And spray that interior with that glue, and then put the pigment on it. It's a very fine dust. You want to wear it like a dust mask. Do it outside, and leave it on there until it dries, a few minutes, and then dump all the excess dust off. Really tap it off. So you'll end up with this whole coating of titanium dioxide. It's not just a standard UVC cleaner. It's called a photocatalytic air cleaner. They charge $400 or $500 for these things. They're really not worth it because that's all they are, is
Oh,
titanium dioxide and UVC. The UVC hits the titanium dioxide, and there's this I don't remember I don't remember all the names of the scientific
it's
things,
like a
but there's some kind of
reaction.
particle. Yeah, it's a catalyst, so the titanium dioxide doesn't get used up. But when the UVC excites it, it fires off some kind of something that then destroys VOCs. Absolutely, it makes the whole place smell like spring air. It eliminates it. UVC by itself is like anti mold, but this thing is like anti mold on steroids. So if you've
Wow.
already dealt with the sources and you want to keep the air inside the car clean, the air inside your car, if you turn off the blower and turn this on and just recirculate, will be cleaner than whatever the outside air is, unless you're driving to the countryside. You will
Dude,
smell. It'll smell like spring air. And I went into, it was a Vietnamese owned nail shop, like husband and wife and one of their sisters or brothers or something, his whole family
yeah.
deal. And they were doing nails on one side and hair on the other. And really, I like to go in there and have my hair done. It was before COVID. I cut my own hair now. As you see, I haven't cut it recently, but um, the what really disturbed me is I go in there and these guys stayed in there all day, and their office in the back where they ate was like really the same air, handler system, and they'd be doing nails on this side and the chemicals and everything, and it was like that is bad for your liver. You have to know that's bad for your liver. So I built one of these systems and I gave it to them. And when they turned that thing on, that whole room was smelled with that stink, and you know the stink I'm talking about.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
10 or 15 minutes, it smelled like spring air. It totally
Wow.
eliminated whatever those VOCs were that were coming off those nail products and manicure products. Completely got rid of them. And you can buy the air cleaner at Salvation Army for $10. Most expensive part will probably be the UVC lamps and fixtures, and that's like 40 or $50. And then the titanium dioxide's another 10. Spray glue's another 10 or 15. And that's it. You build the system yourself, and it works. It works 100. It works amazingly well. Like, I'm not
That that
shitting.
that's pretty interesting. I've looked at a lot of different Reddit posts and stuff
Reddit is
about,
cancer.
yeah, well, whatever it is, about uh hang on, George, my university closed all some rooms and warned every student that there was
Yeah,
mycoplasma problem.
yeah.
Interesting
See,
UVC.
there's two things, and Tools talked about this. Um, is
Souls
that
or me?
what you?
Me. Oh,
What do
okay,
I
yeah.
call you? Tools.
Tools, whatever, tactics, doesn't matter. Just make sure.
Okay, tactics. I'll call you tactics. Tactics
That
talked
works.
about this, and it's like you got to deal with both sides. You got to stop, the source. But once you do that, you also do this so that as the spores go through, they're completely destroyed, and so there's nothing, there's nothing for it to recolonize because otherwise you're constantly having recolonization problems, which is what he's talking about with his tools.
Interesting. I want to say something that I did find. So first, what they were saying about the ozone is that if you've got a chemical sensitivity because of your mold exposure, um,
Ozone make it worse, bro.
yeah, you can
Yeah,
really mess yourself up worse with ozone than doing any good. Because if you've got like the kind of toxins I had, ozone wouldn't kill anyway. And then you
yeah,
get in a car that's been aired out for a day or two from an ozone generator, but it's still there.
yeah. It really gets into. I get you. I
Yeah.
get you. Like ozone
Let
treated
me
water,
let
you
me tell
turn
you
the
this
ozone
one thing
generator
that
off,
I
and it still
found
tastes
though.
weird for like a long time,
Right.
too long. There was a water purifier, and I put some spring water here from the farm there, and I come back and I was like, who's put chlorine in this water? And then I looked up the model because it was a Whirlpool self clean, and I was like, how does it self clean the water? That made no sense. And it turns out if you turn on the cooling switch on the back, there's a cooling and a heating switch. If you turn on the cooling switch, it turns on an ozone generator that pipes ozone into the water.
Is that good?
Is what good.
Ozone in your water?
Well, this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, ozone can like kill everything, but it's one of those things for paranoid schizophrenics that work in an office that want everything like completely purified at a common use water tower. Like, you
Nice.
think the water comes from the Ganges in India or something like that? Or
Yeah.
come on, man, it's purified water.
So
You don't need to purify it again with ozone.
it's going to show backwards on the camera. What it says is an EC3 air purification candle. And what I can tell you, as magic as it feels when you have an item contaminated. So I'm going to back up off this candle real quick and tell you about the
I'm gonna grab some water.
contamination
I have my
level.
headphones on. I can hear you fine.
I had we had a glass bowl that you'd like put fruit
Yeah.
in, you know, and we've tried cleaning this thing 4 or 5 times. And every time I bring it into the kitchen, my wife would say, hey, my coat kind of burns next to this glass bowl. And I'd
Yeah.
sprayed acetone on it. I had bleach, everything to it. So right before Thanksgiving, I grab a whole bottle of bleach, straight
Mm-hmm.
bleach. I poured it all over this bowl. I grabbed one of those Home Depot green brooms with the stiff bristles that come with the dustpan that are short, like the really stiff plastic bristles. And I was just scrubbing that glass bowl. And then I hosed it off. I dried it off and I put it back in the kitchen, and it was still making the air like really weird.
Uh-huh.
So as magic as it feels that these spores are still there, like that's how like
Yeah.
persistent this crap is, right? You just can't get rid of it, right? And if it's in fabric, if it ain't coming off a glass, forget about it. You know what I mean? Like just it's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Glass is an impervious solid object, and if you can't get it to
microscopically, it's
break
porous.
down,
I get that. Just like metal, like some of the worst things that have really hurt my throat breathing around has been aluminum. Aluminum levels, speed squares, stuff like that, dude. Just terrible. Um,
so to the mycoplasm, is the aluminum more adhesive, or is it more porous, or both?
the aluminum is so like microscopically porous
Uh,
that if you're talking about 270,000 of these things being on a pinhead, um, you
wow.
really don't stand a chance. I ran an ozone air filter when I was going through captain trip. It helps keep the trips out of my lungs.
Yeah, it's using lingo. I got to Google.
That sounds that sounds pretty
Captain
bad. I don't know
filter.
what that is.
Look it up on the. I have always have a second phone.
So
Google weird terms and drop in.
these stupid candles, dude, they're like $15 each, right? They do
Yeah.
third party testing, and They work. I don't know how they work, but they work. There's something about
It says
Captain
it,
Trip. Oh,
Captain
okay.
Trips is a nickname for a constantly shifting antigen virus that exterminates 99.4% of the human population in Stephen King's novel The Stand. So it's like some made up thing, but I don't know
In-
what he was talking about. Why is it called
Interesting.
Captain Trips? It's a Stephen King
Oh,
novel.
it's a severe acute respiratory syndrome. Who? So
All right.
it's
Anyway,
right. So yeah,
those
these
bars.
things, man. I've actually put these. Don't do this, of course, but I've put these in two Pyrex containers, one large Pyrex, one smaller Pyrex, and then just left this in my car for like 2 hours because the car was already dead to me anyway. What else are you gonna do, right?
Right.
And
Burn it down.
yeah, well, no loss. You can't breathe in the
I
mother.
get you. I get you.
So this fixes spores. It kills microtoxins.
Is it
This
essential
candle,
oils or
when you
something in
burn it,
there? Or
yeah, it's natural. It's natural, like stuff, botanicals and things like that. Yeah, it's. I don't know if it's essential oils because essential oils really, really mess me up now because
what's the
I'm
name of the
so
candle?
chemically sensitive
Earth
to
and
everything.
what's the name of it? Can you show me the
It's called
candle? I'll Google it.
EC3 candle, and they do third party testing in third party labs to verify their stuff. And these have been like the best thing. I mean, these will purify a whole
40 bucks
room.
for a 3 pack.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
Oh, they must know they got the real deal. All the reviews are positive. Of course, this is
They
on their
work
website, but
really good. And as magic as it is that you can scrub a bowl of
yeah.
invisible spores with bleach, and it not kill them, and then still be
Yeah.
able to breathe whatever VOCs coming off of that glass bowl. And not because of the chemicals that I put on it, but because of the
Wow.
invisible toxins. I don't know. It's just
Yeah, it
magic.
looked like a soy wax based candle,
It is a
but I
soy
couldn't
wax
tell
based
what
candle.
else was in it.
Um,
What is in it?
it so I've got other products from these guys because they work really good. I can show you
Proprietary
the cleaner.
natural botanical blend. You'd have to have an herbalist smell it and figure it out.
Yeah. So this
Man,
is the Decon 30
yeah.
from Benefect, and the Decon 30 is I can kind of read it, but it kills 99.9% of bacteria in 30 seconds.
Hmm.
And it's cleans, disinfects, prevents cross contamination, prevents mold and mildew. But this is also kind of like the same idea would be, you know, present
Nobody
as a
seems to
component
have
of
the dibs on
botanical
what's
essential
actually in
oil,
these things. Yeah.
and the active ingredient is thymol.
Is in that killer, that Deca 30 stuff, that Econ 30?
Yeah, now that's not what's in this candle, but the stuff that seems to work the best is kind of the botanical stuff, which is really strange. But it makes sense because the mycotoxins themselves are botanical, in nature from the mold. But it's
Yeah.
just been a really, really interesting journey trying to figure out all this stuff because
They make laundry
I
additives
mean,
and stuff too. Do you know that? They make candles and sprays
yeah,
and laundry additives. Yeah.
yep, yep, yep.
Wow. This is pretty neat. I might be tempted to buy a 3 pack just to fucking
The
hammer on
candles work
time
so
out.
good. It's really strange how good they work. I
That was
actually
really nice
I
too,
thought
just
I was
having
gonna
a
have trouble
candle.
with my $2,000 computer, and I lit this candle and put it in my computer and let it run overnight, which is also dangerous, right? But I was
Right.
awake because I was gaming, whatever. It wasn't like I left a candle unattended, but I did leave it in my computer. And
Don't leave it in your computer unattended.
no, no, I was there. I was gaming with it,
Hey,
so I
George
was
asked
I was
if
still
there's a
there.
fogger that could do a room. I mean, I would try the candle, and then they do have sprays. So if you
Yeah,
had
so
something that was an
that's
hang on, if you had something that was an ultrasonic, um, cold ultrasonic humidifier, I would try that.
yeah,
The
that's
fog.
a electrostatic air sprayer.
There's my guy has that. He's on another live stream. He didn't get the memo. We're doing live stream. We were going to
What's
just
going
test
on,
this
bud?
out. This is actually just a test. This is not
Yeah.
pre-planned. So thank you for the 14 people that are here, and we will acknowledge you if you say something in the chat.
Yeah, this was supposed to just be for a test. We need to go a little bit earlier because this guy gets tired, but so do I. Just from the exposure.
Welcome to the club.
And that's part of the symptoms. Like when we do this for real, I'll try to get the points up on the screen
Yeah,
of my toxicity levels and the symptoms and stuff. But severe immunosuppression, tiredness, thoughts of despair, um, really, really dark thoughts is definitely part of the symptoms, you know?
it
You
just says
just
Budsville, USA. We haven't figured out my name yet. It just says visitor on when it asks me on YouTube. We're using the YouTube's built-in instead of Streamlabs, which apparently the YouTube algorithm favors it if you use um, their conferencing system. So
yeah.
trying
Yeah,
to
if you use YouTube
see
Live,
see what the numbers
you
are.
definitely get a better push out. And then
Yeah.
also we get to be in 1080. So StreamYard will not
Okay.
push out HD unless you have like
An
what Tools of
account.
Souls has, a $800 camera setup.
Oh.
Um,
Oh, you gotta
and
have
then
a super expensive
it's
camera.
so high end, it has no choice but to push out 1080 is what it
Well,
seems like.
I mean, the question is Streamlabs free? Is he paying for it and you're not? And that's another reason why he's getting better
No,
results
he
for you.
says he's not. So I don't know, but it's expensive. It's like 25 a month.
Well, if
And
you're a
the thing
professional
is,
YouTuber and you have 10,000
no,
subscribers or
no, man.
something,
So, lives don't make you money. They do because people can donate and blah blah blah, and very
oh,
appreciative for that and all
so
that.
it's the canned stuff that you push out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The long
Okay.
format is where you get paid by YouTube. Lives, the longer a live goes on, the less desirable it is for YouTube to push it out. For one, because they have to present it, right? Um,
Right.
even people with 5 million subs will get only a couple of thousand alive at a time. It just doesn't. Not everybody's going to watch a live. The live is more for the community, and that's why
Yeah.
Souls and I do the lives. Is just because we connect with
Oh, because you're trying to
our
get
closest
input from other
guys.
people, and yeah, you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
get. Well,
just
you can also
input
get people
and
lined up, tell them about that's going to happen in a day or something, and they can schedule a time to come see you and ask their
yeah,
questions.
but they know it'll be on later. Lives just don't really do generally well. So even though my last couple of lives has 7,000 views, the
Yeah,
retention isn't there for the full 20 minutes or whatever. It's there for maybe 10. But
yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's great conversating with you guys. So that's why we do the lives, just to interact with you guys, so you can kind of see that we're not all really assholes. You see with these tool channels and you don't really know what their intent or what their thought is or what they're trying to sell or what they're trying to push or really anything.
right.
And you can't fake some of these tool testings, live. You can't fake uh anything live hardly, So it's just a genuine kind of reaction, which is why I never really edited my videos when I first started, was because I wanted the whole story, you know? But for retention, nobody wants the whole story. They just want the point of the video. So lesson
Mm-hmm.
learned there. It's all been a journey, right?
Well, it's 6 p.m. here. I got a few minutes left. I got to go. I got to wrap up things with the chickens and stuff. I got chores to do, and then I got to hit the sack. And if we do this like I don't know when's more convenient earlier in the day, and we'll work that out. But that would be better. And I would. I also have a need, and I don't know how this fits into your stuff. Is that I have a need to really. I don't know why I have a need to do this, but I have a need to have a kind of storyline of what happened to me, and so other veterans. Because what I'm finding, the veteran suicide rate is like 20 plus every day in the
Right,
U.S. alone. Okay,
right,
and I feel what's been happening for the last 30 years is that they go into basic training, they get brain damaged, they don't know that they have a neurocognitive incompetence or diminution, reduction, and then 6 months later, or even 6 years later, they might have served a tour in Iraq or Afghanistan, and they wreck a piece of equipment. They get their buddy killed. They see their buddy killed in front of them, of course, if they're overseas combat veterans. And but they get boarded out of the military because of they broke a piece of equipment or had an accident. They don't. They usually just focus on the accident, and they go, "I don't have an explanation for why I couldn't do that because that doesn't make sense. I know myself." What they don't know to include is they got routinely brain damage back in basic training, and
Right.
that could be
And
a
and let me put a
very
disclaimer there real quick. This
significant.
guy was in the military. This happened to you pretty much.
Well, that's not a disclaimer. I don't know. A disclaimer would be like, I don't know what I'm talking about, or
No,
this
no,
is
no,
medical advice,
no,
or
no. This guy is a vet, though. I just want to say we're not just
oh, you
spitballing
want to give
here. This
context.
is, yeah,
Fair enough.
contact. There you
Yeah.
go.
And I'm not
Yeah,
stealing anybody's valor. I never had to go to combat. I had my own experience with my Vietnam veteran father. That was enough. But
right. But you
um,
were there in the moldy barracks, is what they call it online.
yeah, well, and if you Google these moldy barracks again, what you'll see sometimes what they had was they'd have a unit coming through a base, and the enlistees would be told, "You go stay in those barracks over there." I don't know where the officers stay, but the enlistee guys, and they take 1 foot in that room, they smell the mold, they see the mold spores on the wall, and they go, "We're not staying here," and they go somewhere else. They leave equipment in the room for an hour and it's like covered in mold already when they come back and they're like, "No." And it's that thing where the mold colonies are active and strong in the HVAC system that's never been cleaned out, doesn't have a UVC purifier, none of that stuff, zero filtration. Okay, I know I said they had a filter on there, but if you have a filter that you can see through, that's not really filtering anything.
270,000 on a pinhead. There's no filter that can capture that.
Well, my point is it won't even capture the dust or anything. So that will
Right.
lead to organic layers building up, which will accelerate the problem with the mold more rapidly. And so you have a very strong mold colony going on inside the HVAC. And that's immediately colonizing any organic material it finds and layering it up. Within the context of your experience, you could visualize this to anything that's set in the room. And so these older guys that have done a rotation or whatever, they come in, they say, "No way," and they go somewhere else. But and there's pictures taken, and they make their way online, and then every 5 years there's somebody that is connected somehow, and they say, like somebody in position of pseudo power or whatever, and they say, "Well, this has to be fixed and stuff," and maybe they're really authentically alarmed by it, but it's not done. It's not. It hasn't been fixed. I can find no evidence that they have ripped out the old HVAC system. And of course, you would say tear the building down,
Yeah, I was gonna say
compact
you
it,
can't just rip
burn
out the
it, and then
HVAC.
start over. But there's no evidence that they've even hired a professional company to clean the HVAC, put in sterilization equipment, none of that stuff. So basically, you have this thing that's constantly generating mold, you know, and it's pumping
Yeah,
it out into the lungs of the young people that are
yeah,
signed
we
up.
we are the filter.
Well, what your hairs in your lungs pick up that there's dust, and so mechanically they start to close up your bronchioles, your tubes to your lungs, and then the very first thing you do in the morning is you go out to run for miles in formation in sort of a forced run, if you will. I mean, it's expected that you keep up. There's an A. At the time I went, there was an A, B, C, and a D running group, and you didn't want to be in D because there was no F. And I should have been in B at least. A was like top end, but B, I should have been in B because I'd pre-trained before I went in, and yet I was in C and struggling to keep up in C, and I felt like Gomer Pyle. I mean, I didn't have a thought in my head, and I thought, well, it doesn't really matter because all I have to do is run. And yeah, in the third week, I blacked out because every morning I was waking up, giving myself routine brain damage, and didn't know it.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of
I
been
ran
there.
into a
So
problem. Got a 49-foot humidifier. Yeah,
render problem ran
but
out. Yeah, oh yeah.
definitely reducing the moisture levels will help. And this is a
Can I
situation where
click
that
on
has
this?
affected tons of basic training centers all over the country. It's not limited to the one I went to, but definitely having like a humid outside environment, air conditioning, 90% recirculated air, windows that are never open. It all contributes to this crazy mold problem that they
Well, this
experienced. And this was
this
the
is
late
what I
80s,
can
like
tell you
when it
is
started.
that when I suspected I had a problem, right? I got my sense of smell back, and this was after my surgery. Yes, this was after my surgery, and it was New Year's, and it was
Yeah.
unusually hot here in Texas. And my buddy was over. The AC turned on in the middle of the night on New Year's because it was that warm, unusually warm,
Okay.
and it just smelled like terrible out of the vents. I
Uh,
could smell it, you know. So then Monday rolled around, and I had a company come clean the ductwork. And the guy said, "Hey, we can't say mold, but you have bacteria." And he showed me the backside of my vents, and all the
there
paint
you
was eaten
go.
away, right?
Oh
And he
wow.
said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, all the paint's gone, like just eaten. Everything's all rusted and just eaten." So he
The
said,
mold ate it.
yeah. So they clean the ductwork, they spray their stuff in there. They got the machine that has a vacuum with this whirly thing at the same time with the HEPA, all that stuff.
Right.
And everything's better for about a week and a half. And slowly, surely, after spending $1,000, this is the first $1,000. I've had to sell everything I've owned, throw away everything I've owned, not sell, throw away everything
Yeah.
I've owned, and restart. I spent over $200,000 now in cash from the equity of that house, and
Yeah.
haven't been able to put anything back into the house, but to rebuy everything, right? Cars, everything,
Get it all
utensils,
new.
bowls,
Yeah.
plates, dishes, forks, spoon, everything is new in my life.
Right.
And when I finally found another HVAC guy to come assess like what was going on, I had my regular HVAC guy and he pretty much couldn't sense it, couldn't he wasn't sensitive to it. So
Right.
he said, I'm not gonna let you spend your money, Robert. I think you're going crazy. Um, there's nothing wrong with your duct work, right?
Hmm.
And, I said, "Well, I still want you to do all my ductwork." So he does all my ductwork reluctantly. That was another
Right.
$2,000. I
Hmm.
said, "I want the plenum done as well." I didn't know that it was in my coil, right? So he does the
Yeah.
plenum, that was an extra $500. We're knocking on $4,000 now just trying to breathe in my own
Hmm.
house. And once I finally got my last HVAC guy there,
Hmm.
he's like, I was like, "I think I want you to pull this coil out."
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm here for an estimate. I don't want to do anything. Well, he gets in the attic, he pulls the cover off the coil,
It goes,
and by
holy
now
shit.
I've already got plastic off walls, like
Yeah.
from bedroom to bedroom, from living room to living room, zip walls that you buy at Home Depot. I'm
Holy
wearing
cow.
a I'm wearing a respirator, 3M. I'm living
Boy,
in
the
the
bubble
garage in a
syndrome.
tent. My whole family's in tents in the garage, right? And he gets in that attic and he gets a whiff of that HVAC and he says, "Man, we got to pull this out now." So he actually discharges the unit, puts it all into the outdoor unit, and we
Wow.
get this thing outside the actual coil.
Wow.
And he came about 2 months later to replace the coil because it wasn't cold yet, right? It was still January.
Right.
And he comes about 2 months later to replace it. That coil was still outside in the sun for 2 months outside. And I could smell it from 20 feet away when I walked outside. That's
Wow.
how potent this stuff is. Um,
Yeah.
so
It's
just
clean,
replacing the
steady.
unit is not the solution. I mean, you've really gotta pretty much restart.
Well, and this video is a really good documentation of how, like I said, it won't be enough for them to just have the ducts cleaned in there after 30 years. They're going to have to demolish these buildings completely and start over, and that's the only solution.
No, what one of the biggest things that helped me was talking to a guy that did fire restoration,
Yeah.
and I still had about 80 trash bags of stuff that I thought that I could keep that was
Wow.
outside of this house in the backyard.
Yeah.
And because I didn't want to take it in the house.
Sure. Contaminate the
And
house.
he said, "Hey, make sure you get an air sprayer and spray things away." He said, "Because that dust is microscopic." And he said, "You have to physically scrub the dust off of all your objects. It's stuck on there like super glue." So it's man, it's just been wild.
All right. Well,
You
I
can't
got to
even
wrap it
like,
up. I got to take care
yeah,
of my chickens. But please, spend a couple minutes to finish your thoughts. I won't add anything here. We'll have to schedule
yeah,
another lunch.
no worries. But yeah, just to wrap it up, I mean, you can't get rid of this stuff, you know? It's here to stay. It's very persistent, and all you can do is run from it and then maintain and slowly get rid of every little spore, which is what I pretty much had to do. And then I've got zero tolerance for any of the spores. You go to Walmart, you can't breathe because there's mycotoxins and everything.
Oh, you mean like in the building or in the stuff that's been manufactured and shipped there, or
Everything. There's mycotoxins in everything. You cannot escape them. It's impossible.
so you get to such a high sensitivity level that just going to Walmart is an ordeal.
Yeah, everything's an ordeal. It used to be like terrible. I couldn't go anywhere. I was miserable. My throat hurt for like 3 months straight after getting
Yeah,
out
yeah.
of the air.
hmm
My
George
throat only just
is
stopped
talking
hurting
about.
about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, George is asking.
Not the mold that I had. I had a UV light shining on my evaporator coil. I had UV light inside of my AC unit, directly on it, over the coil.
And what I'm suggesting with the photocatalytic air cleaner, which if you just go into whatever rewind, and you can
Yeah.
look at the build instructions, is that it will kill the spores as they go through. But I don't know about killing like the root colonies. This is just something that will stop them from spreading more.
What I can tell you is that if you can trap it, because when that guy told me that you gotta spray it or physically wipe it to get it
Yeah,
off of the object,
yeah,
if you've got a fan that's physically using a pressure to maintain it in a spot, and then you can remove that medium, whether it's a filter or whatever it is, and throw it away, that's gonna be your best chance for getting rid of the spores.
God, that's
You can't
horrible.
kill them. There's nothing you can put on them. The doctor explained it to me. He said, "If you pour acid on the floor and you wipe it up, there's still acid there, you know? It's still acid. So you can
Yeah.
kill the mycotoxins, but they're still gonna be putting off VOCs when they're dead. You can't escape this stuff. This has been like
Wow.
an unfathomable nightmare."
Well, but we'll learn more as we go. I mean, my depth of knowledge about it has improved from the live stream, and hopefully, my deepest concern is to get the message out there to two kinds of people. If you have young people that want to go into the military for whatever reason, even if it's National Guard, they still have to go through the same basic training, and this is still a problem. And if you have been in the military and you got boarded out, and therefore you get no support from the VA because of some stupid crap that happened, you may not know this, but you were probably brain damaged with basic training and you didn't know to claim it at the time. So you didn't know to say, hey, I had this other condition, that happened to me that would alter why the outcome was, and it wasn't my fault that in basic training the facilities were dog shit and weren't suitable for animals to be kept in, and yet you put people in there. So just and this tells you what tactics he's saying about the absolute depth of how bad it really is, and it cannot be merely cleaned away. It has to be demolished and restarted, and it's been killing off the efficacy of the army, at least, and probably other armed services, for the last 30 years, to the point where they couldn't lead their way out of a wet paper bag, and that might anger some veterans, but I mean, I've seen some pictures of what's going on in there now, and it's like, I don't, keep your own freedom seats to yourself and count on that, because I don't count on them doing anything right. And it's just compounded the issue, because you're expecting people that went in 20 years ago to rise to positions of leadership and be able to do something effective. But if they've all been affected by this, you take the top cream of your country that can perform, and then you routinely brain damage all of them and give them mycotoxin sensitivity, poisoning. Then it's not the outcome's not going to be pretty. So,
Yeah, that's all that's interesting.
yeah.
There's a couple of larger channels now that have been talking about mold more recently.
Oh, cool. You'll have to send me information on it or something
I know
offline.
Jordan Peterson is one of them.
Oh yeah, Jordan Peterson 2 weeks ago, right? And I don't know.
Well, well, his
Absolutely, I
so
should
his
definitely watch
daughter
that.
actually, and then there's another country singer that this has happened to. Ted Nugent's
Okay.
wife, I think, not
Oh.
singer.
Well,
Ted
Ted
Nugent's
Nugent's
wife,
musician, his wife, yeah.
and there's somebody else, but it started with his daughter, and she
Hmm.
kind of started doing a kind of testimony about it
Right,
right as I was starting to kind of move and figure out what was going on when I was in the apartment.
right.
And
Oh,
in
and that
Jordan,
helped you out to kind of clue you in on what was going on.
it kind of made me not feel crazy, which is why I started doing these live streams. Is how I met you. Was just talking about, hey, you're not crazy. These invisible spores is something that is really crazy. I mean, when I say thoughts of despair and new lows of thinking, it's not voluntary. It's a it's a very real. Uh, see, I can't even think now because of just words are hard now ever since having this, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I've had that
it's a
experience too.
side effect. It's
Yeah,
a side effect, and if you watch some of the live streams before, um, I've progressed and gotten better with getting words quicker, but here I am almost a year later, and I still can't even think of words.
I'm gonna go shut
So
the chicken coop. So keep talking. Want to wrap
yeah,
it up?
well, man, I appreciate you sharing all your knowledge and supporting me and my journey of making me feel less crazy with everything that's going on.
Yeah, I'm glad the iodine has helped. What you do.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah,
Can
and,
you
and
filter through water?
usually
I don't
two
know.
months for people that don't know. The iodine was I got it for them from buyiodine.com, which is Jim Fitz. You can go to whyiodine.com, and there's another site that sounds similar, but it's actually run by somebody else, a friend of Fitz, I think. I
Okay.
believe they're in some kind of physician, and it'll tell you, these are the reasons why you should be on iodine, and it cost me, I think it cost me about 35 bucks or something for a little 10 ml bottle, and it doesn't sound like very much, 10 milliliters. It's only like a third of a liquid ounce, but it's enough for an adult male for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months or something like that at a drop a
Yeah.
day. I've sat down, it's about 200 drops.
Yeah, well, it's
And
it's one drop out of there, but then you put it in more water, and then it's
well, the reason why you put it in water is if you put it right on your tongue, it's so concentrated, it'll burn your tongue and it'll be unpleasant. So you dilute it in water and then drink the water all at once. And that gives you about 55 milligrams of iodine, which is about 4 times what the Japanese ingest every day. And the reason why the level's so high is because the normal amount that a North American male, for instance, like Tactics ingests every day is like one hundredth of that amount. It's less than 1/100th of that Japanese sort of standard. And
gotcha. Yeah, George,
Japanese
yeah, I didn't
are
know.
they smoke and drink more than any of the other. There's a chicken in there. I got to put him in the chicken coop. He's sleeping on
Yeah,
the board behind me. We just pick him up. And there's a couple of dogs here too. But yeah, they have less problems than we do in Europe and particularly North America with the typical ailments. Of course, they have a lot of other differences in their food too. But one of the things that you can identify is they get more than 100 times the USRDA of iodine in their diet on a daily basis. And it may be that if you don't have any fluoride exposure or bromide exposure, which is in food and water and everything else, that you don't need that much. Maybe you only need 5 milligrams a day, or maybe only
right,
two. And you can take it
right.
once a week. So you can take one drop as a maintenance dose once a week after you've gone through a year of a drop a day. It takes about a year at a drop a day to increase your body's content of it to about 1,500 milligrams. So then you reach saturation, And by that point, you go down to a maintenance dose. But on that, the reason why I do the 10 ml is a, it's affordable to show results, right? And by then somebody like yourself will go, oh, this really works. I'm going to buy a big bottle, which is really not that much more expensive, but a better value of like 50 ml. And I'll have it for my whole family, and I'll have it for me and my whole family for 3 years of doses.
Right.
So yeah.
Nice.
Why are there still chickens out here? All right, let me
All
open
right.
the chicken
Well,
coop.
uh, this was,
Have
like I
play a
said, this
giant
was just
doll.
kind of like a test. We're gonna work on a real thumbnail
Yeah,
and some more awareness and
yeah.
get some other things set up at some point.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think we're gonna use YouTube Live next time we go,
Mhm.
and we'll try to do it earlier for you.
Okay, great, awesome. I don't even know how
Okay.
to end this. I guess there's an X in the top left. Thanks everybody
Mhm.
for hanging out. Put your questions in the comments. I'll try to see and respond to them.
Yeah, exactly, George. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.